Greetings, my fellow decrepits, invalids, and other sick people. I hope you're doing well today and that you're fighting the good fight. So, I realized I have yet to make a video discussing what are the symptoms of chronic fatigue according to the internet, what symptoms have I experienced personally. And so, I thought I would discuss that today. But before we get into that, if you enjoy the content we make on this channel, please feel free to give a smack to that like button or ring a ding ding to that notification bell and maybe consider subscribing to the channel and sharing this video with your family and friends. All right, with that out of the way, let's get into the video. So, what are the symptoms of chronic fatigue? I decided to get my information from the Mayo Clinic as a very well trusted healthcare organization. So, on their website, the five main symptoms that they had listed were the following. Number one, extreme exhaustion after physical and mental exercise. Number two, problems with memory or thinking skills. Number three, dizziness. Number four, muscle or joint pain. And number five, unrefreshing sleep. So, the Mayo Clinic article goes on to talk a lot more about chronic fatigue and some other symptoms that you could be experiencing as well. Those are just the most common ones. I'll make sure and leave a link to the article in the description so you can check it out if you would like to. But those are essentially what are considered the most common symptoms that accompany chronic fatigue. So, what symptoms have I personally dealt with in my struggle with chronic fatigue? The list on the Mayo Clinic website, I would say I have dealt with all of these in at least a minor capacity. However, there are two that are definitely far more prominent than the others. Those two would be the extreme exhaustion after physical and mental activity and the unrefreshing sleep. So those are the two on their website that I most associate myself with. However, some of the other ones I would say I deal with is not so much dizziness, but more brain fog and just generally feeling kind of cloudy, especially when I first wake up in the morning, or if I start to push myself too far and I get tired, I start to feel kind of foggy, but not necessarily dizzy. So that's one. And then the other thing that's pretty prominent for me is something that I've called being on edge. Essentially, my body gets kind of twitchy sometimes if I've done too much and I start to just kind of twitch. My body just kind of feels kind of tense and on edge. It's just kind of the best way I can describe it. So those are some of the more symptoms that I have felt personally. I would also say that nausea and stomach pain can kick in sometimes if I've really pushed too far, and those tend to go away if I allow myself some time to rest. But those have kind of been more what I've dealt with on a more regular basis. They're definitely something that is challenging to work around, and it's one of the difficult things with chronic fatigue is the fact that there can be moments where I actually feel fairly decent, and this is where I think it's hard for me to communicate with people how I'm truly feeling, because I think there are moments where I come across as looking and feeling, pretty good, and I think, like in the example of making these YouTube videos, that what ends up happening is I make videos on the days I'm feeling my best, and so I probably tend to look my best. I think sometimes it gets to my head, and I start to think, oh, what do people think? Do people believe me that I'm actually going through this thing? And that's been one of the most challenging things, I think. And I have I've gone to Reddit a lot, which is always can be good and bad. But I found a lot of confirmation in Reddit in reading other people's experiences with chronic fatigue, and that a lot of people kind of have a similar experience to me. It seems like in that it's very hard to tell from an outward perspective that something is wrong, especially if you're sitting having a conversation with people. And I tend to think I'm fairly animated. I tend to I talk a lot, and so what ends up happening, I think, is that if I get in a conversation with someone, I think for the most part people think that, oh, it's Ryan, he's just acting himself. But what can happen with chronic fatigue is I can flip a switch really stinking fast, and if my gas tank starts to empty, it doesn't take very long for all my symptoms to start kicking in, and so I have to really monitor and pace myself. And so it's been very interesting trying to navigate family functions, seeing friends, trying to figure out how much housework do I do, and all these different things have basically accumulated into this big picture that's hard to explain and it's hard to present to everyone else. And so I'm learning how to try to share that, learning how to try to make the picture as clear as possible so other people can understand. Because I'm not in a position where I want to, push people away, or I want to still be involved in people's lives. But I think chronic fatigue can be hard to explain. I think for certain conditions, if you had like a stomach flu, I think most people look pretty stinking sick. They don't look good, and there's some pretty obvious side effects that come with that. And so people can generally like, oh yeah, Ryan's not feeling good, if you had a stomach flu. But with something like chronic fatigue, I think people look at it and it's something that you just have to learn to live with. And so after a year and a half, you just try to make the most of it. And so, yeah, I try to laugh, I try to have fun. But I think from an outward perspective, people tend to see a healthy Ryan. And what Ryan personally experiences doesn't feel very healthy. So that was a little bit of a rant. I didn't necessarily intend to go into all of that, but that's kind of an explanation of what it looks like on a daily basis for me in trying to navigate my symptoms and navigate how to try to prevent myself from getting worse as the day goes on. So the last thing I want to get into is what are some of the things that have helped me manage my symptoms. But before I get into that, if you are watching this video and you deal with chronic fatigue, feel free and leave a comment, maybe mentioning some of the symptoms that you personally deal with, and maybe some of the things that have helped you manage your symptoms, because maybe it'll help me, maybe it'll help somebody else. So feel free and share your thoughts down below. Now, for me, I think what has helped my symptoms the most have always kind of come back to the things that allow my body to rest the most. Things like meditation, taking a bath, sitting outside, or having a nap. I mean, all the things that give my body rest. Stretching is a good one. And so for me, I feel like I'm constantly just trying to find time to give my body rest and to give my body a chance to heal. In my previous video, we talked a lot about different ways to rest, so feel free and check that out. But really, the biggest thing for me has come down to just finding ways to give my body a chance to relax and give my body a chance to rest and recover. So that's kind of the only thing I've really learned to help manage my symptoms. Again, if you have any ideas, leave them in the comment section below. I'm open to hearing all kinds of things. And I would love to hear your thoughts. So I hope that makes sense, and thank you. All right, and if you stuck around to the end of this video, I just want to say thank you so much for your time, first and foremost. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider sharing it with your friends. You never know who it might help or who it might encourage. So with all that said, my friends, thank you again. I hope that you are having a good day. I want you to continue to fight the good fight. Take care of yourself. God bless you, and we will see you next time.